Stanley here with Leadership Network. I am the director of the Next Generation Pastors Group, and I'm here to tell you a few things about Next Generation Pastors. First of all, what and who is a Next Generation Pastor? Well, these are pastors who are under 40, typically the lead or senior pastor. Most of them like to be called lead pastor. They're leading large churches in the U.S. and Canada. Those are primarily those we work with. And they also have a multifaceted ministry approach, meaning they work locally and globally in various ministry areas. So a few metrics about these next generation pastors. Most of these guys have multi-site churches. In fact, it's more the norm to have a multi-site church than not among these younger pastors. And what are the key drivers in the multi-site church movement among these pastors? Well, first of all, it's economics. Many times it's less expensive to have another campus added rather than to plant a new church or expand an existing campus. You know, building projects are very expensive, and at this particular time, that's not always the wisest plan. Also, there is a lack of open space, land and buildings in some areas of the country. So frequently, by adopting a multi-site strategy, that works out much better for the church and the people involved in the church. Another metric, most next-gen churches grow faster than churches from previous generations. And why is this? Well, part of this could be the multi-site strategy that many of these pastors are adopting for their churches. This enables them to expand their reach into their communities, even across their state, even into other states, much more quickly than they could build a new building or relocate to another site. There are also the learnings that they pick up from previous generations, pastors that led large churches in the past. They've learned some valuable lessons that they can transfer to their own ministries to help jumpstart the growth of their own churches. And many of them just have a better understanding of what it's like to lead large churches, how to staff and structure for that, because of the lessons they've learned from the past, as well as observing what some of their peers are doing now in leading large churches. So some of the trends that we've observed with next generation pastors, let me review 2 or 3 of those. First of all, most of these pastors are more proactive in balancing their professional and personal lives. It's just as important to them to have a healthy family life, a healthy emotional life and spiritual life, as it is to be a great leader at their church. So many of them are figuring out how to make time to perhaps have a date night on a regular basis with their wife, or perhaps spend some quality time with each one of their children on an individual basis. Or maybe it's to fulfill a personal dream they've had. One of our pastors wanted to run a marathon and started training for that, and by the end of his time with us in our program, he did run that marathon and was very proud of that accomplishment. So this gives them a chance to get outside the ministry box and spend some healthy time with family and just for themselves. Another trend for next generation pastors are how they seek out older mentors to advise and counsel them, as well as networks of peer pastors, their own age and stage of ministry, as well as peer mentors. Perhaps this is a pastor their own age, perhaps in a church a little larger than theirs, but that might have a little more experience, maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. This is a very valuable component, part of what we try to offer our pastors, as well as what they seek out on their own. Another trend among next generation pastors is the fact that they use more teaching teams each weekend. So they're not carrying the teaching and preaching load all by themselves. They frequently have from 2 to 4 teaching pastors on their team. So this allows them to preach and teach anywhere from 35 to 42 weekends a year, rather than every weekend of the year. This enables them to stay refreshed, to give other leaders a chance to develop and come up and hone their own skills as communicators. So it's a very healthy balance and benefits the church as a whole. Some of the questions that Next Gen pastors have been wrestling with that they just haven't quite figured out yet involve a couple of issues. We hear these questions come up time and again. First of all, how do you handle the challenge of ministry and money? We all know that it takes money to do ministry. It takes money to build buildings, rent buildings, purchase equipment, pay staff, and on and on and on, do ministry in general. We know that's a reality, yet these pastors and churches don't want to constantly focus on the issue of money. They don't want to be talking about money all the time or make it seem like that's their main concern. Yet, on the other hand, it's hard to expand your ministries and become very effective in what you're doing without some financial backing. So how do you handle that challenge of ministry versus money? Another question that we hear on a regular basis is what to do about buildings and facilities. Many of these next generation churches have a desire to be more missional, be very portable, lightweight, if you will, simple, focused on ministry and not on buildings. Yet there is a need for a central gathering place, if not every week, at least on a regular basis. So they're wrestling with how do you balance the needs of being more missional, more ministry-minded, versus spending money on buildings and finding that perfect meeting area for your people. And last of all, I want to talk about a prediction. Something that we're seeing develop more and more with next generation pastors is the fact that they're willing to partner with other churches and other organizations, both nonprofits, for-profits, just other organizations in general, to do ministry. And sometimes that may not look like the traditional ministries we're used to seeing. An example of that would be Hope Baptist Church in Las Vegas. Vance Pittman is the lead pastor there at Hope Baptist, and they have a number of initiatives operating, both to serve the local community as well as the global community. They train pastors. They provide for tangible needs of people in their local communities. They're constantly partnering with others, both churches and nonprofits, to carry out these initiatives. Another example of this would be New Direction Church in Memphis, Tennessee, where Pastor Stacy Spencer has a restaurant on site where their church is. This is another part of their campus, which they use to train leaders as well as serve their community some really great food. I know because I've been there. So these are all opportunities for the church to reach outside of their walls in very different ways to serve their community and serve others. And I'd like to close today by just saying that we are always looking for more next-gen pastors. So if you are a next-gen pastor or you know one, someone under 40, leading a large church that might be interested in some of our programs, some of our resources, or connecting with a peer group that we know about here at Leadership Network, please contact me. You can email me at linda.stanley@leadnet.org, or you can go to our website, which is leadnet.org, and contact me through the website. You'll find a wealth of resources there as well. Just click on the resource section, type in Next Generation Pastors, and it will bring up a list of our most current resources for you.